Just a few days ago, on April 14th, Mohsen Madawi, a Palestinian student and long-term U.S. resident, was arrested by Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents at the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services office in Colchester, Vermont. He had had a green card since 2015 and arrived at the office expecting to complete his naturalization interview, which is a significant step toward U.S. citizenship. Instead, he was detained by ICE officers, some of whom had their faces covered, and he was taken somewhere. But the Trump administration's attempts to move him to a jurisdiction with a more friendly judge was interrupted. Madawi, a philosophy student at Columbia University, was set to graduate in May and had been accepted into a master's program at Columbia's School of International and Public Affairs. He co-founded the Palestinian Student Union at Columbia and was known for organizing peaceful protests. He was also known on campus as a person who was building systems for Palestinians and Israeli students to come together and actually talk with each other. Mosa Madawi has not been accused of a crime. Instead, his status has been revoked because of his speech. And when I read about this, there was a quote in the article from one of the Israelis that Mohsen had reached out to have these dialogues. His name is Mikey Barat, a recent graduate of Columbia with a master's in international affairs, and I thought it might be interesting to talk to Mikey Barat, so I asked on Blue Sky if anybody could put me in touch with him, and amazingly, I got an email from his old improv teacher introducing us. So here we are, Mikey, on short notice, on your vacation. Hi.
Hi. Good to talk to you.
Where do we find you?
I'm in Vietnam at the moment. I decided to treat myself for 4 months of travel in Asia. Some could say an escape after graduating in December. And things follow you.
Things follow you. So how are you? How are you doing?
It's strange times, from what I've heard through the grapevine, through his lawyer, is that he's in good spirits. He's doing all right. This isn't, one could say this isn't ideal. But when he and I spoke a few weeks ago, he, was taking precautions. He knew this was a possibility. I think he was emotionally preparing himself. Yeah, I did see he had done that interview with CBS where, he knew this was a possibility. The one thing I will say about Mohsen is that he's... I don't know how much you know about his backstory, but he's been through hell in his life, and he's one of the most resilient human beings I've ever met. This is far from the worst thing that's happened to him. He has survived much worse. He's super resilient. He's a long-time practicing Buddhist. So I am finding comfort in knowing that he's in his strength.
Did you know who Mohsen was before you became friends?
No, not at all. So a little bit of background on me. So I'm originally from Israel, moved to the States when I was 12. I'm a dual citizen. And I went to Columbia to do a master's in international affairs and international security policy and conflict resolution. After October 7th, like all Israelis, was in a lot of pain. But I found that the level of dialogue on Columbia's campus in the country at large was lacking. On both sides. And so I, out of curiosity, went into the encampment and was talking to people in the camp, talking to other Palestinians or also non-Palestinians just about their experience, trying to share my experience. And, as many things do at the moment, it felt kind of fruitless. And then...
I mean, did it feel... I don't know that I would have had the courage to do that personally.
I grew up during the Intifada in Israel. I grew up kind of in a war zone, if you will. So some people yelling things and holding up signs doesn't really. Sure. That's not danger to me. I think we've kind of corrupted the use of the word in many elements. Kind of corrupted the use of the words like uncomfortable to mean unsafe, and I think the two things are different. So no, at no point I didn't feel scared. I mean, it was weird.
I don't know about you, avoid situations where I even feel uncomfortable. But I guess you are in international affairs in conflict resolution. So maybe
I think I might have a bit of an addiction to being uncomfortable.
Okay, that's good. We need people like you.
I'm glad. I'm glad it has some use. But long story short, basically months later, people who I talked to during those months contacted me hey.
So you had gone in and had these conversations.
I'd gone in and had these conversations. I felt like I had learned. I felt like I had, stretched my dialogue muscles, but like
But you hadn't saved the world. You hadn't made
definitely
peace.
not.
Yeah.
No, not yet. We're working on it. But we are working on it because in September, two of those people text me and they're like, "Hey, there's someone who was a leader in the movement who is looking to talk to Israelis specifically. He wants to find someone who has like studied international affairs and security, and who are interested in dialogue. And we thought of you. Like, would you be interested in meeting him?" So to me, obviously, the answer was an immediate yes. And it's funny because I had a lot of these conversations, but it had never been like a date, if you will. And we like scheduled a coffee meeting, and I'm waiting at the like grad student coffee set like cafe and waiting for him. And
Are
I'm
you
nervous.
nervous? Yeah, yeah.
I'm more nervous than I was going in the camp. I was really nervous just because you don't know. And like, this is an actual person from Palestine. Like, I didn't even know his background. I just knew like, this is a like actual Palestinian. Like, how's he going to see me? Like, we like get a coffee, and obviously we do the whole like, I'll pay. Oh no, I'll pay like thing. Like a date. It's like it's weird man platonic.
Weird man platonic international relations date.
Yeah, exactly. And I have to say, within 15 minutes, it was like we were best friends. The guy's amazing.
What was your first impression?
His demeanor. He is unbelievably like, here's how I'll put it. A lot of people like use the lingo of like empathy nowadays.
Sure.
I think it's for good reason. It's a buzzword. People talk about being empathy, and now I'm like, he's a practicing Buddhist, and people kind of talk about these ideas. The guy lives it. The guy really, really inhabits it. And his first kind of questions to me were like, "So is your family in Israel? How are they doing?" Mm-hmm. That to me, that says everything. And I asked him, "How's your family doing?" And that was this moment of like, all right, there's going to be something here. I'm not sure how many people have seen like his interviews with 60 Minutes or whatnot, and he talks about like love and this, and he means it.
I want to get into where that led to, but I imagine that there's times where there's tension, there's disagreement, that like rhetorical tension, or even just like facts on the ground tension. How do you?
Every single time with Mohsen where I have been nervous to bring something up, I have, and his response is incredible. So like, I mean, within the first time we met, we had a conversation about like this idea of something he wanted to start, which we'll get to, and the question of BDS, which is boycott, divestment, and sanctions. And this is a kind of, for a lot of Jews and Israelis, it's seen as a kind of something like, if you support it, it's a non-starter. I don't necessarily view it with such, I think there's more space and nuance to talk about that. But, when we're meeting, and it was the first time and we're getting to know each other, and he brings up BDS as his like, that's the first goal. And I was like, I don't know, man. Like, like if you do that, you're going to, like, you want to build something, you make that your cornerstone, you're going to lose people. And what was amazing to me is we like talked probably like 15 minutes about it and really go in and explain the dynamics and the politics. And he's like, okay. Now that doesn't necessarily mean he like immediately changed his mind and doesn't agree, and he agrees with me, but he really wanted to hear it. He's really interested.
So you meet in this this coffee shop situation. Who somebody pays for the coffees?
I paid for the first one. I insisted.
And what's from there? So you didn't know about this guy. You didn't know that he was part of the organizing of the like some stuff before.
I had kind of heard like he had been a leader in the movement. I didn't know the full story.
Sure.
What's next? So the next one is, so the idea was how we want to build a community of Israelis and Palestinians, and specifically Israelis and Palestinians, not like Jewish supporters, not like other supporters of the movement, like really like the people who have the firsthand experience of the stakes in this conflict, bring them together to I think first and foremost, to show that in this time where people are just screaming past each other, like there are those of us who want to solve this, and to the idea was start small and grow and grow and grow until we could have like a broader movement and create a different narrative, pressure, decision makers. And it's funny because I'm not an activist type.
What do you say?
I mean, so I was just never. I was always. I was very like idealistic when I was young. I studied environmental studies in undergrad, and I had kind of given up on the dream of making big change, and I really, I always, and I'm not one to like be a part of a movement. The irony is like, here I am now, like this week with everything that's happened, like I feel like I'm taking on an activist role, and it's this weird like, oh, Mohsen, you bastard, you got me in activism now, and it just took you getting arrested.
All it took was you doing, from what I can tell,
nothing.
Usually to get arrested, you do have to break the law, but in this case,
yeah.
Apparently that is not the case.
Not.
So I think that, that there was the period where Mohsen was, organizing protests, but then there was sort of like, it seemed like he stepped back from that some.
And this is the irony of it all, is like Mohsen stepped back, in many ways, I think because he believed that the movement needed to put a little more emphasis on like policing certain voices or moderating certain things. There's a famous clip of him kind of like, suppressing like someone who's screaming anti-Semitic stuff, and him saying like, this doesn't represent us. And I think my understanding is he felt that the movement had become a little bit, or always, I don't know, like was too lax in that, which is funny, right? That was my biggest critique of the movement. Like as an Israeli who does want to find peace, I would talk to people in the movement and say like, I would love to join your cause of like a ceasefire. I would love to join your cause of, an end to the occupation. But I can't, because there are people within your movement who are actively justifying my potential death. And I think Mohsen felt similarly that like the movement wasn't doing a good job policing itself. So he then, I think, transitioned and took some time to think, all right, what's next? And so he decided that he wanted to start this middle path. And so he did spend a lot of time talking to Jewish people, Jewish like leaders and academics, talking to Israelis. And I think also like spent a lot of time like trying to learn more. He had already done a lot of work, but like continuing to learn about the Israeli and Jewish experience. Currently, it's been in progress, and I think it has moved a little slower than we would have liked. There have been kind of debates, as they often do, and then of course, like I graduated, so I left. So I've been kind of on the sidelines and looking in from the outside. And Mohsen, I think over the last few months has had other things that he's been focusing on for good reason, obviously. But the irony is actually like his, over the past 3 or 4 days, like our group chat of like Israelis, we call it like Israelis for Peace or whatever. We haven't really come up with a name. But like our group chat is like, we've been more active than we've ever been. Like people are writing op-eds, people are doing interviews, people are really trying to show, I think, and I want to be very clear, all of us think that these arrests are unjust. Also Mahmoud Khalil, regardless of what the person's views are, this is wrong. For us, one, with Mohsen, like this is personal. He's our friend. And two, it shows how absurd this is. Like, I think, often for a lot of Israelis, there's this saying like, or this is more like maybe center right, like, we don't have a partner for peace. We want peace, but we don't have a partner. And I'm like, here's your goddamn partner, right fucking here. Here's the guy. And if we can't stand up for this guy, then what are we talking about? This is the ironic thing, is like, Mohsen's a pacifist. He's an actual pacifist. I'm not. Like, I studied security.
So Mohsen is like an actual literal pacifist?
He's a literal pacifist.
Oh.
Yeah, this is what's nuts about it.
I assume you've seen the video of
the arrest.
Mohsen being arrested, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess there was not shock that came along with that for you.
There's not shock. There was, I mean, was there shock? A friend sent me, it was 1 a.m. for me. And my best friend sends me the clip, and she's like, they got Mohsen. And she knew how close we were. And, it's interesting. Like, I knew it was a possibility beforehand, but like my brain immediately went into like overdrive of just like, all right, what do we do? Just started like reaching out to journalists. I will say, like, watching the clip, and this is maybe something I should admit, I like chuckled a little bit at first, just seeing him being like so calm, shooting the peace signs. It's like, of course he's gonna do that. Like,
Yeah.
nothing phases that guy.
Did you have a reaction to the justification that the State Department gave? Did you see any of that?
Oh, this new one about like he's harming the peace.
Yeah,
First
yeah.
of all, like,
There's
yeah,
it's a specific like law. I think that like it's a specific part of the law that
yeah,
says like you can revoke someone's green card if they like are a threat to U.S.
yeah,
policy,
to national right. And so I think
which has only ever been used for like basically
spies.
Soviet spies.
Yeah. um, yeah. So there was something around that, and then like I think their argument was by encouraging anti-Semitism, he was harming the peace negotiation.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
And
Something
it was,
like
it didn't even actually, I don't think it said that he encouraged anti-Semitism. It said that like his actions could encourage anti-Semitism.
it's batshit. Like it's so dumb. Like you want to have a conversation about what's holding up the peace negotiations in Gaza. It's the leadership of both of those sides. It is Hamas and it is the Netanyahu government. If there's any one thing I want to come from like these interviews, it's like American Jewry, liberal American Jews who believe in democracy, who believe in free speech, who want peace. Stand up for this guy because he's the thing we want. He is like what we have been asking for. And he's not the only one, far from it.
Yeah.
But here is a young man who is taking a leadership position in this movement, who's been through so much, who could hate us if he wanted and has chosen not to and wants peace and wants coexistence. Like, he should be our champion.
Do you feel like you might have negative consequences to your career or future in America because of this?
I've never had to weigh the morality of action and like the personal sacrifice in this way. But it just, to me, it's like, it's okay, fine. Like if I don't get some job, I'll get another job, or I don't know, but like this is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
If I don't stand up for Mohsen, then like, does anything I say about my value matters? Like, am I all talk? So like, it wasn't even a question.
What are your hopes? Like if this could go the best way, what would that look like?
So my expectation is he's going to be released because this is so clearly unconstitutional. So that to me is like step one. And now maybe I'm wrong, but like, and I think we've seen like, even if the courts say something, that doesn't mean it's going to happen. So like, I don't like if that, I can't even handle that, if you will. Like there's nothing I can do. That's a level of powerlessness. If the U.S. government decides to illegally deport someone, no matter what the courts say, like I can't do anything about that. That's kind of step one. Is he's going to be released. I believe it. He and I are going to sit and have eat hummus. People love that. People fucking love that idea of like hummus diplomacy. Like, oh, it's just Israelis and Palestinians just get together and eat hummus.
Yeah,
right. Like, they'll just get together and they'll talk about their problems with hummus. But like, we actually, that's something I would do with them. I'd love that. So that's step one. My like dream is that like, and I want to be clear, like, I'm not the only Israeli who's doing this right now.
Of course,
I'm not the only Israeli. Like, there's many others who've worked with Mohsen, who know him, who see this as our opportunity to
and other Palestinians who are on the same track.
100%. My aspiration is that this injustice that's been done to Mohsen and the response of Israelis who support him can like remind people that this doesn't have to be this way. And again, like it's funny because there's been this debate of like, like us, we have this group chat of Israelis who were working with Mohsen, and like there were other like Jews at Columbia who were writing a letter. There's a question of like, do we join them? Do we not join them? And I was like, no, I think it's actually important that this be Israelis. I think it's important to show that we as Israelis find this wrong, and that we're not alone, and that there's not one of us, there's a lot of us. And my hope is that this can start some sort of spark of like at least in America, bring Israelis and Palestinians together. And then maybe we can work backwards from there or forwards. Like, I think there's a lot, we have a lot of pain here. There's even more pain back home. I talked to my brother who lives there. I talked to my friends.
Of course, yeah.
Mohsen talks to his family. The people who are really living in it right now, it's incredibly painful. And so to kind of, if we can start here in the States where it's a little more removed and we can bring people together, maybe that can carry on.
That's beautiful, man.
As I hope it happens. We'll see. Inshallah, as they say.
Thank you for spending some time and also for doing this all over the place. And anytime. I hope that you have some normal sleep when the sun is down.
Oh, last night, I think I slept, because I hadn't slept for 2 days. I slept from 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. and then from 11 to 6. The most I've slept. I mean, I feel great now.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. That's what traveling is like. It's like never knowing when you're gonna be asleep. Especially when you're the full 12 hours. That's nuts.
Oh, and I'm nocturnal anyways. I stay up till 4 in the morning. So my sleep schedule got weird.
Yeah.
It got really weird. Yeah.
I love it. I love coming back and being I can make my sleep schedule whatever I want it to be. And then it immediately reverts back to exactly what it was before. I could be a 6 a.m. man again, and then no.
You see, I don't even strive to be a morning person.
Well,
I celebrate. I celebrate being. I just don't have kids.
Yes, that was what my life was like, and then I had a child. And now I strive to be a morning person because I have to be.
Because you have to, because there's a literal living being who has needs from
because
you.
The school starts at 8, and so I have to be up at 7.
Listen, that's another podcast episode about school hours. I have a big problem with.
It is. I would do it differently if I was the despot, but I'm sure they have their reasons. What we need is people who are comfortable being uncomfortable to come into these spaces. To do the necessary diplomacy.
The necessary diplomacy of getting school to start at 11.
Yeah.
I will say
that comes second, okay, after ending the wars.
After we solve Israel-Palestine, then we can get to school hours.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a nice
Appreciate
day.
You bringing me on. You too. Take care, man.